All right, I've got 3 o'clock. I think some more people will be joining us, but we're going to get started. Hello, thank you for taking your time out of today to join us. I'm Teresa Lyson, a business solutions consultant here at NACC, and I'm excited today to bring you our next webinar in the Instructor Webinar series. Today's topic is strengths-based leadership with Kait Tysver. Kait is a Gallup certified strengths coach, providing strengths-based leadership through one-on-one coaching, group training, and corporate team building workshops. By partnering with her, you can focus on what you naturally do best to maximize your potential and enhance your performance and fulfillment. Kait works with individuals and teams to help them understand their strengths and how they can use their strengths to progress in their current and future career roles. She provides space for individuals and groups to learn, to recognize, articulate, and exercise their strengths and the value that adds to their personal and professional lives. Her background is in organizational communication and human development and leadership. She enjoys helping people identify their uniqueness and how it can benefit both them and their organizations. She particularly loves working with groups to help them identify how each person's individual strengths can propel an entire team forward. The Clifton Strengths Assessment is not just a tool for awareness, it is a tool for action. Talking about strengths to others is a powerful step in unlocking your true potential. Look in your chat today for a link to the handout in a few minutes. And if you have any questions throughout Kait's presentation, please add them to the Q&A or chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll save time at the end of the webinar for Kait to answer those. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kait.
Thank you, Teresa. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon on strengths-based leadership. And our objective today is for you all to understand what strengths-based leadership is and to whet your appetite on how to then apply your unique individual strengths or your unique individual approach to leadership, regardless of your role. And so before we get started, I'm just curious, and you can just write a yes or no in the chat box, but who has taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment before? And it was previously known as the Strengths Finder Assessment. So you might know that as well, but it is now called or referred to as the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And then if you're answering yes, I see a few of you have. If you remember, go ahead and type in your top 5 strengths. I would just love to kind of have an idea of what type of leaders we have in this room. And it's okay if you've never taken the assessment before. Hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll be inspired to want to go out and take it. But just curious what your top 5 strengths are, and you can go ahead and put those in the chat box. And this may not mean anything to some of you yet, but my top 5 are discipline, focus, achiever, harmony, and significance. And so in short, what that means is I'm an executor as a leader, and we'll get to know more about what that is and what type of leaders there are here later in this webinar. But I just wanted to share first off, I do truly believe that improving your leadership begins with focusing on improving what you're already good at. And the Gallup organization that puts on the Clifton Strengths Assessment, they call that leading with your strengths. So those things that come naturally to you, those natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that help you succeed daily, that's what they refer to as your strengths. And so when you intentionally start to apply your strengths as a leader, that's when you're going to see that your life and the lives of those that you lead begin to change. So we're going to start with a quote today. And I just want you to know that to succeed as leaders, you need confidence, you need clarity, you need empowerment, and you need a better understanding of how you contribute to the world. And so the Clifton Strengths Report gives you that power to unlock those components to your success. And so you don't have to become a different leader to be successful. You don't have to be all things to all people. You don't have to, compare yourself and try to be someone that you're not. You can learn how to be the better version of yourself and who you already are to improve your leadership. And so Clifton Strengths helps leaders grow in confidence in who they naturally are and what they contribute to the world. So I hope that that quote there is inspiring for you. And throughout the presentation today, we're going to start with working through what is strengths-based leadership, what's the importance of strengths-based leadership, what is the Clifton Strengths Assessment, how does it identify your natural talents, what are the benefits of using your strengths, and then ending with how can you actually apply it. And just as a reminder, this is a webinar just to whet your appetite. But hopefully this will get you inspired to utilize your strengths and to start figuring out what that journey looks like for you. Um, so strengths-based leadership. Um, so in short, the most effective leaders are always investing in their strengths. And at the heart and soul of strengths-based leadership is not just being a high performer, but doing it in a sustainable way. And leaders feel when they're performing high in a sustainable way, leaders feel like they are able to bring their best selves to work and truly make an impact. And the reason that's so important is because ultimately creating sustainable high performance means that we as leaders are establishing those leadership practices that allow us to bring the best version of ourselves to work while doing the same for the people that we lead, and not burning out. We're constantly feeling energized while we do it. So you may be asking yourself, do I have the right strengths to be a leader? Of course you do, because it's all about leaning into the best of who you are in a way that drives impact. And again, not trying to be someone that you're not. It's figuring out what your unique approach to leadership is. What are your unique strengths? And so we have to start with, what does success look like for us? And that means different things to different people. But asking yourself, what does success look like for you or for me? Um, and how can your strengths contribute to that success? And so, in summary, a strengths-based leadership approach or development strategy starts again by focusing on what people do well, what they do naturally really well, and then emphasizes and builds on those strengths to help individuals become even more productive. And so when we look at the Clifton Strengths Assessment, um, which is what Gallup uses to identify people's unique strengths. It's an online tool that helps people identify those natural talents and then helps you see how to use them. And so it was a positive psychological movement founded by Don Clifton originally, and it's different than most assessments because it focuses on what's right with you rather than fixing you. And so I'm sure that we've all had those performance evaluations where we've left just feeling kind of crummy. But this positive psychological movement, this tool, is the opposite. It's used to help you feel inspired and confident and empowered and equipped to do those things that you do really well. So it measures your talents, those natural patterns, again, of thinking, feeling, and behaving. And through this assessment, it can then help you discover what you do best, learn how to develop those natural talents into strengths, helps you aim your purpose at a greater performance level that's sustainable, and it helps you tackle your career, helps you work better on teams, and helps your personal relationships as well. And all in all, really, it just helps you feel seen and valued and heard. Um, and so when you take this assessment, Don Clifton found that there's 34 patterns of the way people think, feel, and behave. And so he's measured those talents into 34 themes or strengths. And then he then categorized them into 4 leadership domains. And this is just a shortcut of learning how to make the most of the assessment. And so those 4 leadership domains include executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. So whether or not you have taken the assessment, you can take a look at this table here, which is also one of the resources that Sarah and Teresa put in the chat box. But these are all 34 of the patterns or the strengths that Don Clifton founded, categorized into their leadership domains. And so these are just, again, natural ways that the Clifton Strengths groups these strengths based on how people work together to accomplish goals. And so executors, which is where I fall under, if you remember from earlier, these are the leaders that truly make things happen, right? So every team has goals to achieve, they have work to accomplish, they have tasks to complete. High performing teams look to executing individuals to make things happen. And so when your team needs to get something done, they look to these people to get it done. Now, the way they get it done will differ and depend on what their strengths are. But as a whole, they can take your idea and make it a reality for you, and they will work tirelessly to accomplish that goal until it's complete. So they're very unique in the way they approach it, but they are the ones that truly make things happen for your team. are influencers. You see them probably a lot in sales roles or advertising, marketing roles. They are the communicators in the group, right? So they're the leaders that know how to take charge. They make sure that your team has a voice and is heard. They speak up for what's needed. And every team, again, they need to communicate internally and externally, inside and outside of a group. And so, no matter what your goals are, effective communication is truly essential to achieving those goals. And so, high performing teams rely on influencers to take charge, to speak up, and to sell the ideas or to persuade others in order to accomplish a goal. So, your team can help reach a broader audience by relying on leaders that are high in influencing themes. And again, their unique approach will differ depending on what their strengths are. But they can truly aid in accomplishing goals by communicating in their own unique way. Then we have relationship builders. So these are the glue to the team, really, right? They're the ones that can make solid relationships and maintain them at a healthy balance. And every team truly is nothing more than the sum of its parts or the unique individuals that make up that team. And so a team's power comes from each person being empowered to use their distinctive talents and appreciate others' distinctive talents. And our relationship building leaders are the ones that help each other see your unique talents and your unique value to the team. And so high performing teams rely on relationship builders to bring individuals together to make the team greater than the sum of its parts. And again, they do that in a unique way based on what their strengths are. But teams need to become stronger. They need to become more cohesive. And so look to these people to achieve shared success, and they will help bring that team forward. And then lastly, but not least, we have our strategic thinkers. These are our brains behind the operations. They are really good at analyzing and absorbing information, making informed decisions based on what they find out in experiences or learning knowledge. And every team needs people who can help us focus on what could be, not just what is, right? Or what has been, but what could be. So people who devote their time and talents to understand what is necessary to routinely put their team in the position to succeed. So high performing teams rely on strategic thinkers to absorb and analyze information that informs better decisions for tomorrow for your team and organization. And when your team needs to become more creative or more innovative, you can look to these people, and they are able to inspire new ideas that can lead to a really high performing team. So hopefully everyone's kind of figured out maybe where they fall. Even if you haven't taken the assessment, feel free to put that in the chat box. So again, we kind of know what type of leaders we have in the room. And this will also be, again, a resource that you can print off later that's in the chat box. So now let's move into what are the benefits of knowing and utilizing your strengths. So individuals who use their strengths and their role are more likely to be engaged in their job. They report having an excellent quality of life. They strongly agree that they have the opportunity to do what they do best every single day. And so according to Gallup, there are many other benefits as well to knowing and utilizing your strengths. So that includes improved quality of life. So people use their strengths are 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. They are reported to have increased engagement. So not just doing your job, but truly being involved and enthusiastic about the role that you're doing and the tasks that you're completing. And you're 6 times more likely to be engaged by knowing your strengths and doing what you do best. They reported higher productivity. So teams that focus on strengths are 12.5% more productive. Again, because you're learning what you do best in a sustainable way. And they've also reported lower turnover in organizations. So employees who have received strengths feedback have 15% lower turnover rates than those who don't. So that's huge as well. Among these, though, there's also increased confidence, right? So employees have the opportunity and the ability to feel more confident, to speak up and express their ideas when they know what their strengths are. They have increased motivation, so they're more likely to work on tasks that are aligned with their strengths and therefore be motivated to be more productive and engaged. And they have more feelings of competence. So employees are more likely to feel competent in the areas that they're working on because they're doing what they do best. So let's move in. And again, we're flying through this. This is just whetting your appetite. Um, but let's go ahead and talk now. Like, how do we've talked through what the Clifton strengths are. How can you go about identifying them? But how can we start to apply them? What are some examples of strengths in specific leadership roles? And I'm going to give you a couple ideas. But if you want to put in the chat box a success that you've recently had, if you don't mind to share, and maybe how your strengths have contributed to those, and I'll make sure to read those later. But we'd love to share those amongst the group too if you have taken the assessment. But leaders must possess a high level of self-awareness. And why is that? Because without an awareness of strengths, it's almost impossible for you to lead effectively for a long period of time in a sustainable way. So we all lead in different ways based on our strengths and our limitations, but serious problems occur when we think we need to be exactly like leaders that we admire. And doing so takes us out of our natural element and then decreases our chances for success. And so when you look back at your past successes, that's when you're going to start to really see, okay, these are the strengths that I really do have that contribute to my success. How can I then correlate that to what I'm working on now for future success? So we're going to look at a couple great historic leaders really quickly at their successes and how their individual strengths have contributed to their successes. So if you've heard of Winston Churchill or Gandhi, you might notice more differences than similarities in the two leaders, but they've also both been successful, even though they're different types of leaders, right? And so it's the differences that define them, but that also led to their successes. So Winston Churchill's bold and commanding leadership allowed him to succeed in mobilizing a war-ravaged nation. And it's unlikely that he would have had such success if he had tried to imitate Gandhi's calm and quiet approach with what he was doing, right? But yet, on the other hand, Gandhi's leadership during India's struggle for independence was much more effective because he didn't try to imitate the domineering leaders of the past. And so both men knew their strengths and used them wisely to be successful with where they were. So Clifton Strengths helps people discover their own strengths to lead and provides them with several specific strategies to apply based on your unique strengths. So again, very brief with the time we have here, but those are just some examples of how you can see different unique approaches can still be successful in different situations. So again, would love to know, how have you seen your strengths help you lead in the past or help you be successful in the past? And I think when it comes to leadership, thinking about these times, again, where you have led in your lifetime is really helpful clues to what will make you successful in the future. And so maybe it was just an example of your sister was feeling down and out. So you went and comforted her, right? You were able to comfort her. You're able to console her and inspire her about what the future could look like. That would be someone that, could really possess a calming adaptability in situations that are high chaos for her sister, could show futuristic, right? So you're helping her see the future during a hard time that she's struggling with in the present, or could be a little bit of empathy as well, right? You have empathy for her, and so you're helping to comfort her because you care for her and can understand where she's coming from. Or maybe looking at a past success could look like when you were a child, there was a bully that was picking on a friend of yours. And so you confronted that bully and you stood up to him and you were courageous and bold, right? So maybe you lead with an influencing theme of command. You're able to speak up and have a voice for those who aren't normally heard, right? So again, looking at the stories of where were you at your best? And I went back to childhood in those examples, but you can also look at recent successes that you've had or where you've been at your best in your current role or previous roles and kind of figure out what were the keys to those successes? What was the uniqueness in your leadership that helped you be successful? And then again, utilize that to help you be successful in the future. And when we start to look at we have to start with what our success looks like, right? So then asking yourself, okay, how did my achiever strength contribute to my success? Or how did my responsibility or whatever it looks like contribute to that success? And start to correlate your successes with what those natural talents are that you have. So now we're going to look at developing a quick action plan with the time that we have left. And developing, again, just whetting your appetite on what that looks like for developing a personal action plan where you can start to utilize your strengths more intentionally and more effectively. And so this is just an equation that Gallup put together. It's called the talent equation. It kind of shows you what I've talked about before, where you take those natural talents, you invest time into them, you spend time practicing and applying them, and they become strengths for you where they're giving you that near perfect performance in a sustainable way. And the good news is that development never ends. And so the more you become aware of your strengths and practice them, the more your knowledge will intensify. So self-awareness is truly the first step. And as your awareness grows, so do your opportunities to develop them into strengths. So for as long as you work, grow relationships, strategize, complete goals, influence those around you, you'll have the chance to deepen your awareness of your strengths. And I hope that you will then thrive to continue to grow in meaningful ways. And so just a couple examples for how to grow based on your leadership domain. So this is just a brief overview of how you could start to aim your strengths if you're a strategic thinker. So a fundamental need that you have as a strategic thinker is time and space to think. And so to truly develop those natural talents that you have into strengths, you need to consider that. Do you have time on your calendar each week to really brainstorm ideas and give yourself that space that you need to think? If not, maybe start with 30 minutes here or there, blocking off time on a Friday afternoon if that's usually slow for you, just to give you time to allow your mind to do what it's fully capable of. And then share those thoughts with people that are close to you that you think would benefit from them. If you're a high relationship builder, here's just a quick way that you could aim your strengths. So again, your power is in relationships, and you're going to work best in the presence of others. So this may sound really obvious, but you need to start prioritizing relationships, right? And so even if you're not task oriented, you still have tasks to do. So try to find someone that could partner with you on those tasks to get that done, right? So try to start looking for partnerships and start truly investing in partnerships that you see that could be successful, because that's going to in turn help you be successful as well. And then influencers. Challenging your confidence is key to developing your influencing themes. So make sure that you're putting yourself in places to develop that confidence, right? To take those risks, to continue to stand up for the things that you believe in, and making sure people are feeling heard. So really asking yourself, are you giving yourself a platform or a voice to a specific person or audience? Who is your audience? And what is your opportunity? What's an opportunity that you have to give yourself that platform to engage that audience or to communicate a message, an important, relevant message for that audience? And then executors. We don't need any work, right? No, so you need time to truly focus on quality work. And I think that's the key here. It's not the quantity, but it's the quality of your work that really makes us develop into a better leader. And so whether you're at home or at work, developing a priority list or some kind of list to determine which tasks are essential and non-essential, and figuring out what you need to prioritize in order to do quality work. Because I think sometimes we're just spread too thin, stretched too thin, because we can overcommit ourselves. So how can we learn to say yes to some things and no to some things in order to truly focus on the quality of our work and not the quantity of our work? Um, so here's what we know. We know that strengths-based leadership um, leads to true success, right? So the equation can help us understand how to grow our talents that I just showed. So talent times investment equals strength. And so after you're aware of your strengths, try out that equation. Try figuring out what are some just little things that I can start to do to really intentionally practice and develop those strengths. And it honestly could be as simple as looking at your calendar for a specific meeting or phone call you have coming up this week and asking yourself, what strength or what is this meeting about? What is this phone call about? What strength could I use to make sure that that meeting and that phone call is successful? And intentionally think about the strengths that you could use for that. And I would love to help you do that. As an expert, I can help you start laying out areas of focus for you if you're interested in learning more about how to develop your natural talents into strengths so that you're more productive and successful. And so if you are interested in coaching or training or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. You can reach out to Teresa and she can give you my contact information and connect us. But sometimes it just helps to have that third party there who can help you really hone in on what areas of focus should I be um, focusing on is as important as it is all times a year. It's probably even more in the front of our minds as the new year comes about. What are those goals that I have for the new year? What strengths can I use to be successful in those goals and just to help give you some helpful ideas and direction? I would love to help you do that. So again, you can talk to Teresa about that and she'd be more than happy to connect us. But with that, I'm going to open it up for questions for our last 5 minutes. Um, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about what strengths-based leadership is today. So any questions or thoughts, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Kate. While you are thinking of questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box, the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will launch a quick poll here. If you would please stay on and complete that just to give us a little bit of feedback on today's session. And also, like Kate said, if you have any questions about strengths-based leadership or you would like to bring Kate into your business and learn more, please reach out to me. I dropped my contact information in the chat box as well, or any of us here at Business and Community Solutions. We'll be happy to help connect you with Kate to learn more about strengths-based. We did it here at NICC a while ago. My top 5 are harmony, maximizer, developer, arranger, and empathy, which makes sense. I'm in sales and relationship building. So I don't see any questions. But again, if you have any, drop them in there, fill out the poll. Our next webinar will be December 16th with Sarah Hermison on Boomers to Zoomers. Watch for the registration links on our NICC socials and in the follow-up email that you will receive this week with today's session. Here is a question, Kate, that popped in. I don't know if you see it or not. Sometimes I look at my strengths and think they aren't positive. How do I change my mindset?
Well, there's a piece of learning about your strengths where you're improving them, but there's also that piece of managing them, which we didn't get into today. So sometimes our greatest strengths are our greatest weaknesses, and they can become barriers if we overutilize them. So there's also that piece of learning how do we manage them. And that's probably as much as I can go into it today with not knowing what your strengths are or what you're thinking of as them not being positive. But there's I've coached a lot of individuals where they either think that same way as you do, where they think it's not positive, um, or they think that that's not actually a strength of theirs. And then when we start to talk more and more, they start to see, oh, that is a strength I have. This is how I've used it to be successful or not. And so sometimes I think it just helps to have that person to talk to kind of figure that out a little bit and to dive deeper in learning what that strength actually means for you, not just in general. So I know that's really brief, but This is
We
such
have
a
a couple more questions.
nice topic that it's hard to answer that on a personal level.
Good. We have a couple more questions.
Okay.
So one is, we change as we age or get experience. How often should a person retake the strengths test?
Good question. That is actually the number one question I get all the time. I get that everywhere I go. And I would say if you took it as a student and have not taken it as a professional, that would be the only time I would have you retake the assessment. Because if you think back, again, these are your natural patterns. So your core self, your natural self isn't going to change much. Now, based on experiences that you've gone through or situations that you're in, they may fluctuate in order a little bit on how frequent you're using them. If you had your top 10, you may see some of your top five drop to your top 10, but you're not going to see them leave your top 10. They're just going to fluctuate in order on which ones you're utilizing more than others. But your natural self doesn't change. And so you're never going to jump, like your 34 is never going to jump into your top five, if that makes sense. So I don't really see the difference in taking the assessment again, unless you want to take a different assessment. So they have come out with different role-based assessments. So there's the Clifton Strengths for leaders, the Clifton Strengths for managers, the Clifton Strengths for sales. And so if you're in a different position and you just want to get a different insight report on how to utilize your strengths in a different role, that would be a great way. You could just then upgrade your assessment.
One more question. Are there some strengths that are more prevalent in our society?
Um, I think for different roles, yes. I think when you think of like sales roles, you think of the influencing roles, um, or the relationship building roles are going to be prevalent in those types of positions. It doesn't mean someone with strategic thinking can't influence. They're just going to influence in a different way, right? So, um, they're going to be, if you can even Google this, like what are the most common strengths? Strategic's going to be up there, achiever's going to be up there, learner's going to be up there. So those are the ones that you're going to see most common, but does not mean that some are better than the others. Um, you can still influence even if you have context as your number one, which is a strategic thinking theme. You're just going to influence others by helping them look at past experiences to influence better decisions for your team going forward, if that makes sense. So you're just going to do it a different way. There's no better strength than others, but there are some that are more common than others. Any other questions?
Here's all the questions that have come up. So thank
Okay.
you for asking those questions.
Yeah, thank you for
Great
having
for a
me.
little more information.
Yeah,
So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Kate, for sharing Clifton Strengths-based leadership with us,
of course.
and have a great day.